Hey everyone, it's Jessica with Montana Family Pharmacies, and today I'm here again with Josh, our pharmacist, and then Karsyn Hornby. She's with HealthyIs, and she's the director of health coaching for HealthyIs. And maybe Karsyn, if you can tell us a little bit about what HealthyIs is.
Yes. So when I explain HealthyIs, I always say that we work in unconventional corporate wellness. And so we essentially, our wellness program, we're trying to disrupt what wellness programs look like for everybody, and our team comes to you on site, so that takes out like time and convenience for our employees. We contract out with employers to work with health coaching one-on-one, and then we have some fancy in-body machines that we use for our breakdowns. And does that kind of help?
So we've been doing it with our company, and it's pretty exciting. It's very neat. The scans are really interesting, and then every month they give us a health kind of challenge to challenge how our behaviors and things in our everyday lives to help make us healthier. We wanted to talk with Karsyn today because March is National Nutrition Month, and so she and her team are on the leading edge of what the latest research and things say about health and nutrition. So we're going to talk to her, and she's going to give us kind of bust some of the top myths that are out there about nutrition. So what would you say is like one of the first one you'd want to talk about?
Okay, so I made a little list, but the first one that I want to talk about is this myth of we need to eat right away in the morning. And the term used out there is, hey, I need to eat to kickstart or jumpstart my metabolism. And that just isn't really a valid way to talk about how our metabolism works. And so what we're kind of educating is, it's okay if you take a break from food, whether that be 12 to 18 hours. Perhaps some of you guys have heard about that. It's called intermittent fasting or peak fasting. But let's say that it's time to eat. It doesn't really matter when I eat, whether that's 6 a.m. when I get up or noon. Some people can make it until then. It just matters what, essentially. And so whenever I hear people say, hey, eat first thing in the morning to jumpstart your metabolism, to turn your metabolism on, I gently try to debunk that one.
Right. So can you explain a little bit as to why that is? Why we don't need to necessarily, or why that philosophy is flawed?
Yeah, so we used to think that your body could only really survive work properly if you eat right away in the morning. And so that's keeping your blood sugar levels up.
Having the calories.
Spiking your blood sugar. And now we know through recent research that we kind of do a little bit of a ketogenic fast. So after we have been sleeping all night, your body starts to burn a little bit of fat. We call it a slightly ketogenic state. And you're burning fat until you ingest food, whatever that may be. So coffee could help that ketogenic state, but like if it has sugar in it, it's going to cause you to stop burning fat. You're going to now burn first the coffee creamer and then glycogen stores after that, and you probably won't burn fat the rest of the day.
Interesting.
So you can still eat right away in the morning, but you don't have to. And it's almost a connection to jumpstarting your metabolism, especially if you're trying to lose weight. It would make more sense to fast a little bit, eat a really nice, nutritious meal.
So it does the opposite of jumpstart your metabolism. It just stops your metabolism for...
Yeah, yes.
So.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay, so on to myth number 2.
Okay, so I'm going to segue into the eating many small meals throughout the day. So what's currently taught is, okay, to keep my blood sugar levels up, I need to eat every 2 hours, every 3 hours to make sure that blood sugar doesn't drop. And so the idea was that we stay along this line all day long because we're eating so often. And that's what I was taught in school. That's what Nick, my boss, was taught in school. But it's actually incorrect. And so we found it's okay to let blood sugar fall a little bit. It's okay to let it spike once you eat. But a lot of new longevity diet research is finding, what if we only eat 2 meals a day with a snack, or maybe 3 with a snack? But that kind of 6 to 8 meals, the 6 was the common number. We're finding that maybe that's not valid, and people tend to gain weight a little bit on that, or their insulin levels, they're more likely to develop insulin resistance.
So then does that lead into like type 2 diabetes and stuff?
Yeah, over time. Mm-hmm. And so we really like a 2-meal thing, but I don't push people to only eat 2 meals a day. But if you can get into that where maybe you eat at 10 a.m. and 5 p.m., it's actually a pretty nice split. If you could have a very high quality snack in the middle of that.
Is a high quality snack like a good protein drink?
Wendy's?
Wendy's chicken sandwich. Like mixed nuts is the first one we say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. It's interesting, and that's not to say you shouldn't eat if you're not if you're hungry, eat. But you don't have to. I've met people who are like 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, just because they feel like they have to do that.
Oh, because of that teaching.
Because of that teaching. Okay. Yep. And you don't have to do that.
That'd be a hard routine to break, but I could definitely, I can see some benefit in it from what you're saying. But that's an interesting one.
Mm.
Yeah, actually, I've been trying to think about it. I'm thinking about it in the relation to the way I eat, which, in general, is that I have been lately. I was doing like a high quality protein drink in the morning just because it was fast, and then I would have like a decent meal at lunch and then dinner. But I've swapped, for the most part, depending on the day. But for the most part, I've swapped to eating like a high quality meal in the morning, and then I do a protein drink after my workout at noon, and then dinner.
I love that.
Some snacks in there.
With some snacks.
Because I'm hungry.
You can almost like retrain yourself to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I do it consistently, I don't get as much of that like 3 p.m. lull.
You don't crash. Yes. Love that.
My brain is just going a million miles an hour off the first 2 minutes. I can't wait to hear the next few. Just because it's so unconventional to what we're used to hearing, you know. I mean, I was always kind of taught that, you know, think of your metabolism like a diesel engine. It wants to, you know, it takes a while for it to warm up, but so it's best to let it warm up and kind of run and go all day long. It's better to run on idle versus to start, stop. And you're kind of telling me start, stop, go cold, start, stop. And so it's really kind of even a retrain of my thinking from my education, and it's interesting now to try to see how it actually applies, and I think that's why it's so important that you're doing, you know, something like this, or why this can be so valuable. So.
Yeah, for sure.
I think we find ourselves in a unique place because we're learning all these things. Like we can biohack, we can do things to either like increase the span of our life, or we can supplement really, really fancy things. But we do need to mimic ancestral style eating in ways. The theory is that our genes have not yet caught up with where we are right now. So our genes have not caught up with like white flour processing. And so if we could mimic a little bit of ancestral style things, it's unlikely that in our hunter-gatherer times we could eat every couple hours.
Right.
When we could eat, it was high quality nuts, olives, seeds.
Right.
Avocado, things like that.
So how about myth number 3?
Okay, so myth number 3, I'm going to do protein. So a lot of people, protein is very well marketed and advertised. And so we've all learned, I mean, anyone, any age has learned, oh, if I eat more protein, I'll lose weight. That's healthier for me. But typically that's not going to be true, especially for women. So a lot of women who are trying to lose weight will increase their protein intake, and in fact they'll start to gain weight, or they'll plateau completely. And so I typically make a recommendation for your protein intake based off of your lean body mass. So a lot of the recommendations out there are, okay, let's say 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, which is really high. But let's say I weigh 150 pounds, I eat 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. That's 150 grams. It's a little high. What if I did that out of a lean body mass, and that just means I take my fat out of it? If you don't know how much fat you have in your body, that's okay. It's typically anywhere from 20 to, I mean, it could be 100 pounds, but maybe 20 to 50 pounds for the average person. So what if I make my recommendation for fat out of 100 pounds instead, or for protein, sorry, out of 100 pounds instead? And it really, the reason that is because 50 pounds of me, or however much fat I am, 30 pounds, doesn't benefit from the ingestion of protein. Only lean body tissue does, where fat, I mean, adipose tissue just doesn't need protein. So I like to bring that up because women especially don't need to ingest protein shakes. A lot of Americans probably get their recommended protein just off of groceries. So if you're going to add a shake on top of that, be aware and just be conscious of how much protein you're ingesting. Aside from the weight gain, protein is a little bit hard on our mitochondrial membrane. So every cell has a mitochondria. There's billions in your body, and we see a little bit more mitochondrial membrane breakdown with higher protein diets. In fact, some dietitians or researchers say we would rather you have a high carb diet than a high protein diet if you're going to pick one of those.
Interesting.
It can just be heart and liver, kidneys.
I don't even know how many grams of protein I consume a day, but if I'm eating several eggs in the morning with bacon, and then I have a protein drink, which is it is a meat-based protein, whole food protein drink, and then I obviously eat protein in my dinner every night.
Yeah, so you're probably pretty high. I mean, you're not.
Now
You don't need to lose weight, but what if
Right, but is that
over
affecting
time,
not being able to lose chunk weight?
Yeah, and
fat?
I think, yes. And I think it affects aging. I think it's detrimental to your aging process.
Interesting.
And women can only digest like 15 to 20 grams in one meal. Men are about 20 to 25. So if you have a 40-gram shake, you're like screaming it.
What is, how much protein is in an egg?
7 grams?
And how many grams did you say you can only process?
20, maybe 15.
Okay, so you should only be eating like a max of 3 eggs.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of people that are, working out, and so they'll do the protein. The whole it takes protein to build muscle, that sort of thing. Does that protein consumption differ for people that are doing real aggressive kind of weight training and working out?
Yes. So out of a recommendation, the recommendation I believe in is 0.5 gram of protein per pound of lean body mass. Let's just throw that out there. For a person who is very athletic or working out, we would take that up by 25%. And I think you can carry that over into other recommendations. Okay. So like this is the normal person's recommendation, 25% more. And you could change it over time if you feel like you're losing muscle mass, then maybe you could take it up.
Okay.
Yes, that I'll go into the protein while you work out too. So one of the myths is that we should eat before we work out, and a lot of people take that as a protein shake before they work out or during the workout. But if we really look at how the process works, so by nature, when you work out, your sympathetic nervous system is activated, but if you ingest something, that's parasympathetic process, and so they have to really fight for control. It would be better to work out fasted or eat and wait for at least a couple hours to go work out. Unless you are really afraid of like losing muscle mass for whatever reason, if you have like a really, really high metabolism, then maybe you could eat and go work out. But for people who are trying to lose weight, if you eat and go work out, you're going to digest what's in the belly and in the gut, instead of tapping into your fat stores, and that's typically the goal for most people who are working out.
Okay.
Typically.
I'll start having a snack before I work out. Because I have a snack because I'm like, I'm almost like, I feel like I might be shaky.
A lot of people feel like their blood
workout.
glucose. Yeah. Yes, and you can just also slowly back people off. Like, what if you're having a bar? What if we go 3/4 bar, half a bar, quarter bar? But a lot of people who want to gain muscle mass will have like the protein shake while they're working out. I think it's okay, but it would be like more practical to just have a carbohydrate source because you'll just burn it directly, and then protein can do its thing later when you eat. But I think the way we think about it is like, oh, I'm drinking this protein and it's immediately building muscle, and that it just doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I'm not really doing it for that. I was just doing because I thought, oh, this is better than like a granola bar.
Yes.
But I don't know
It
if
is probably
Oh.
a little bit. It's slower digesting.
Yeah.
And then there would just be the argument of, is too much protein over the course of your life detrimental for your health?
Interesting.
There are some longevity researchers that say, hey, if you're eating too much protein, you could just be fueling like things like tumors and cancers, and if it's really, really high.
Interesting. All right, so let's move on to, what are we on, myth number 4?
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to talk about fat. So I think that it's becoming more recognized that fat is not as bad for us as we originally thought. It's really interesting to look at the history of fat and like unsaturated fat, saturated fat in the 50s through the like early 2000s on top of sugar and what the sugar industry did. And it was really amazing how it worked, but the sugar industry funded a lot of anti-fat research things and funded a lot of sugar research, and so a lot of biased research going on. If we really dig it up, fat took the blame for a lot of things it probably didn't need to. And so I know that my parents are part of a generation that are horrified of, or they're like completely terrified of fat, right? My mom still buys margarine.
Right.
And believes it's better. And so it's just, it's a way of thinking, and people, I'll even recommend to them lightly, like, hey, how about a clarified butter in your diet to get a little bit of a fat rich? Immediately they're kind of nervous about that, but fat is good for us, especially high quality fats. It could be clarified butter, but it could be from avocado, nuts and seeds, very high quality oils like avocado oil, coconut oil, olive oil, but you shouldn't heat olive oil up, just have it cold.
Because doesn't heating it up make it have free radicals or something?
Yeah, it breaks it down. Yeah, oxidize it. Yeah. And so I think that you guys will continue to hear that, but don't be afraid of fat in your diet. The new age model of thinking is, what if fat was at least 40% of our intake instead of the old 20 to 30?
So like, what about, for my kids, I still buy whole milk.
Yes, I love that.
And like, probably will coach them to buy whole, as long as they consume it, if they choose to consume it, that they should consume the highest fat.
Yes, 100%. I always say like, buy the fat yogurt, milk, cottage cheese, whatever you want to get. Cheeses.
The biggest thing with fat is, I like to, it's food for, it's what feeds the brain,
Yes.
And so you start looking at all the increased incidence of Alzheimer's and all of these things, and you just got to wonder how much of it is maybe because of this no fat push that we had for the last 20, 30 years. Yeah, and then you add in sugar, and
I mean, the brain is made of fat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And if all of a sudden you're depriving yourself of that.
And on top of that, if you take your fat intake up, really being mindful of omega-6s and omega-3s. A lot of Americans eat a little bit. I think the ratio is like 20-1 of omega-6s to omega-3s, and we want it to be 1-1. We normally go to omega-6s, but we need more omega-3s.
Right.
Yeah, so grass-fed beef and butter are things that actually will get you omega-3s.
Right.
Yeah, we pretty much do our beef is pretty much all grass-fed, and then, but 99% of the meat that I get is wild game.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that's the best.
Yeah. So, myth number 5.
Okay, so now we have salt. So I just want to talk about salt. A lot of people already, or even still, they're saying, I'm really aware of my salt intake, or I'm avoiding that food because it has a lot of salt. And I think it's okay to avoid salt if you're on certain medications, or I don't know if you have some sort of reaction to it. Some people get like really inflamed. But to think that it causes high blood pressure is the myth. And so we just want to debunk that. It was a really good theory back when it was presented, kind of the early or the late 90s. But it just didn't prove to be true in the research, and they kept finding things that contradicted the hypothesis. So if you ingest higher salt, of course you're going to retain more water. Of course it's going to drive your blood volume up, which would drive your blood pressure up. But there's no link to my intake of higher salt throughout the course of my life causing me to have high blood pressure, or hypertension, I guess would be the better term for it. So we just say, hey, don't sweat the salt. If you could consume like a Himalayan pink salt or a sea salt as opposed to just table salt, that's actually way better for you.
Okay.
Especially Himalayan pink salt, but it's not going to cause your high blood pressure.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So thanks to Karsyn for coming and chatting with Josh and I, and we definitely learned a lot, and we hope that you did too. If you did, please share this with your friends and let your friends know to find more videos like this on our Facebook page and YouTube at Montana Family Pharmacies. And you can also find our videos posted on our website at montanafamilypharmacies.com. So if you have any questions about the information that you found on this video, you can feel free to shoot us an email, and we'll definitely connect you with Karsyn and her team. What is your website?
HealthyIsMontana.com.
Okay. Thanks for watching, and you can find your local pharmacy at montanafamilypharmacies.com.